Hey, this is Matt from Helped. Welcome back to M&A 101. Today, we're going to talk about who and I guess what we'll call the when. So I was in my backyard yesterday and looking at the lawn and the patch of grass in the corner next to the fence. And I think, I want to start a garden. I want to plant some tomatoes and cucumbers and some snow peas and bell peppers. And I could go on and on for days. But I know I need some planters, some dirt, some fertilizer, mulch, all kinds of tools. I need the trellises, I need those little twist ties so that the tomato stalks can be attached to the trellis. I need lots of stuff to get started. I have an idea. I know what I want to do. I know the path to do it, but I still need to get started. I'm excitedly telling my wife about all this, about these great plans that I have. She's looking at me thinking, gosh, that's going to cost a bunch of money. But at the same time, my neighbor, he's a dentist, pretty well off, overhears us, looks over the fence and says, hey bud, I know you're great at growing stuff. I've seen you with the garden you've had in the past. Tell you what, I think I should buy all that stuff that you need. I'm going to give you the money to go down to Lowe's, Home Depot's, the garden center, and get everything you need. Because I think your garden's going to go so well that someday you're going to be selling all your cucumbers and tomatoes at a roadside stand, making a bunch of money. And then when you do that, we can share in that wealth. So that rich neighbor dentist, first of all, is an angel investor. He's an angel because he's just a person. If he were an actual business, then he would be an institutional investor. And when I say a business, I mean a bank or a venture capitalist or a PE firm. And I'll get into more detail about what those mean later. But basically, they're businesses whose business is to invest in some capacity. This guy is just a guy, so he's an angel. He might have a business that he uses to invest. He probably has an LLC that would actually be the one cutting the check to me. But again, he's just a person. He's a dentist. He's not a professional investor per se. So it's not an institutional investor, which pretty much means it's an angel investor. Now, back to my garden business now. I have this idea. I know what I need to do. I have the dream. Gosh, he's right. I would love standing at that roadside stand during that summer weather, selling my cucumbers and tomatoes. That sounds like a dream. I should go do that. And he's right. I do need some money to get started because my wife really doesn't want me just paying out of pocket for this. So what round of funding is this? Well, let's think about this garden analogy. I literally need seeds. I literally do not have any seeds. That means this is the pre-seed round. So most businesses, 99.9% of them are not garden businesses like this, but the concept still applies. That pre-seed round is when there isn't much business there. It's when there's an idea, when there's a concept. Maybe there's some, working, some diagrams, some charts, some ideas, maybe not even quite yet a proof of concept. We are pre-seed because there's really nothing but the dream. And thank you to my dentist neighbor for being the angel investor in my pre-seed round. But now let's skip ahead a few growing seasons. The cucumbers are coming in great. The first harvest, there wasn't even really enough to share with the dentist, but they were delicious, well, for me and my family. And the next season, a few more came in and I was able to share with him. And he was reaping the profit, I guess, of his investment, the return on his investment in the form of cucumbers instead of dollars. And one day he comes to me and says, oh man, those cucumbers were delicious. I have some buddies who are saying there's tons of demand for apples out there. I know you're great at growing stuff. What if we get an apple tree for you to grow and harvest? We can get an orchard of them. And you can tend to the apple orchard and make that the business. The business is doing great. We're ready to really commercialize this. You're not making enough cucumbers to really sell and make a profit, but apples, I know one tree is going to give you hundreds of pounds of apples. I don't actually know how many pounds of apples a tree gives, but an apple tree will give you hundreds of pounds of apples. Your apple orchard of 6 trees is going to give you hundreds of pounds of apples. You can make some real money doing that. But now, apple trees are expensive. So right now we're at a stage where we've shown how this business works. We take your money, we use it on this particular type of equipment. We have this method for conducting our business of doing the gardening, of doing all the planting, the reaping, the sowing, all the things that go into the gardening. But now we want to do it more. We want to do it to where we can really commercialize it. Debatable, whether or not we have revenue at this point. Our cucumbers, we're probably not selling them at all. But whether or not you have revenue at all, the fact that we're not really profitable, we're not really a standalone viable business, means we're in the seed stage. So maybe this dentist is in an angel network. Now, little nuance here, an angel network might itself be a business. There's a website like AngelList that is sort of a collective of angels where it is in and of itself a business. But the individuals in that network are just folks that share investment opportunities with one another. This dentist and all his pals is just a group of angels. So maybe now that I've reached the seed stage, I'm going to get another investment from my group of angels. I've demonstrated to my dentist buddy, and now he'll give me the chance to introduce me to some of his other peers, how good I am at growing stuff. Gosh, these cucumbers came in great. Why don't you try one? Yeah, you're right. These cucumbers are delicious. Here, take my money. No, don't take my money for the cucumbers. Take my money because I bet you could make some great apples too. So I did another stage of investment. I went from pre-seed now to my seed stage. And in both those stages, I had angel investors. So now I get the tree. The tree grows. Quick aside, apple trees, you don't actually grow them from seeds because there's some crazy randomness where if you take a Granny Smith apple and plant the seeds, there's 5 seeds in there, they'll grow to 5 different trees. Those 5 trees are all gonna have completely different tasting apples. So all apple trees are actually grafted from old apple trees, and there's just the one original Granny Smith tree, and that's literally the one Granny Smith tree and that everything has come from. Anyway, I grow my 6 apple trees. I start selling the apples, or maybe I start selling some apple pies because apple pies are delicious and I can make even more money than I can selling my apples. Maybe I'm even selling some of those branches from the apple trees to somebody else who wants to start their produce business. This is really starting to work. I can quit my day job and tend to the farm full time. I have this growing orchard. Maybe I'm taking some of my profits and getting some more apple trees. But the problem is my backyard, it's not that big. So at this point, I'd say we've reached Series A. And again, it's complicated. There's nuance. There isn't really a hard and fast definition. But now we've reached a point where there is a real business here. There is the ability to grow these apples, to harvest these apples, to sell these apples or the pies or the branches of the apple tree, whatever it is. I'm actually making real money, conducting real business. And now it's time for me to grow again. In this case, said my backyard won't cut it. I need to go buy that plot of land. I need to go buy that farm. And that's going to take a bit more money. I'm actually here in Southern California. Lord help me, if I try to actually buy a big plot of land around here, I would probably have to be a billionaire to do that. So I probably need a bit more money than maybe my dentist neighbor or his people can provide. So I have a couple options. I decide I am going to go the institutional route. One option for an institution would be a bank. I could go to a bank and get a loan, a small business loan. There are actually standard small business loans, kind of standard. There are rules behind how they work that are run by the Small Business Administration, still facilitated through a bank. The Small Business Administration would set you up with the bank. The banks all have their different terms, but there's some standardization in the rates and the payback periods and things like that. Maybe one of the angels from my seed round introduces me to an investment firm that he knows, a PE or a VC. So at this stage, VC, venture capital, is a lot more likely than private equity. The breakdown, I guess, in layman terms is that the venture capital is the guy who's kind of just buying the lottery ticket. Venture capital is saying, I love the idea. I think you can pull it off. I'm willing to place a bet that you are going to grow 100x. Right now, you're selling 50 pounds of apples and making, a couple $100 profiting. If you're selling 50 pounds of apples, probably not profiting much at all. But I see what you're doing. I see that it works. I think you could go from selling 50 pounds to selling 50,000 tons of apples. I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth here, and I'm willing to place a bet on that growth. The venture capitalist, they're probably not expecting every one of their investments to be successful. They're probably not expecting 50% of their investments to be successful. Caveat to that, with venture capitalists, there are different firms that focus in different areas. Some do focus on the pre-seed, the seed stage. Some focus more on the Series A. Some focus more on the later stages. And the later you go, the more and more of a sure thing the business is, basically. But regardless, the venture capitalist is really just banking on tremendous growth. If you go and put your money in a savings account, a money market fund, you're going to be making 4 or 5%. Venture capitalist isn't trying to sink their money into something where they're making 4 or 5%. They're trying to sink their money into really as many different investment opportunities as possible, knowing that 1 out of 10 of them is going to return that 1,000% and then pay back the rest. Private equity, on the other hand, is really looking more for profit maximization. And again, there are lots of different private equity firms with lots of different specialties, whether they're investing in larger businesses, smaller, medium businesses, whether they are the 80s style corporate raiders where they're stripping the business for assets. There's the story about a PE firm, a private equity firm. I don't recall what they were called, but they bought a Japanese baseball team because they did an analysis that even if the team went bust, even if they shut down operations of the team, the steel in the stadium that would be part of the deal to buy the team was worth more than they would have to pay to buy that team, which was crazy analysis. So they thought there was good profitability opportunity there. But for them, it was more about the specific assurances of returns. PE firms will probably do in general a little bit better than the stock market itself, than the Dow, but they're really looking at similar sorts of businesses, typically businesses that are a little bit bigger in size than the guy who has his first 6 apple trees. So in this case, again, what we're looking at is somebody that's going to be more venture capital. So I get the introduction, the dentist introduces me to another angel who introduces me to the venture capital firm. I do my Series A, I raise the $1 million I need to go buy a plot of land and a bunch more trees, hire some employees, I get a tractor. I don't know the first thing about an apple orchard, but I don't think I would actually need a tractor on an apple orchard. So now that I have the sweet tractor, I decide to branch out and do a watermelon patch because I could see needing a tractor for a watermelon patch. If there's any farmers watching this, please, by all means, do correct me. I have the tractor, business is going well. I want to branch into the watermelon patch. I'm probably going to need some more equipment for the watermelon patch. I probably need something to go through and plant all the seeds for me and turn over this. Again, I really don't know any of this stuff. Suffice to say, I've reached a point where the Apple stuff is going great. I'm making a little bit of money. I'm buying some extra equipment, but I know there's a whole lot more that I need to do. Moreover, I think there's a lot of opportunity in branding my fruit. There was that guy, I think somebody actually has a trademark on the Granny Smith name. I want to do my own apples. I want to have Matt apples, Mapples, and watermelons. So in this round, it's not just buying that equipment. I want to, build that marketing engine. I need to bring in some expensive consultants, marketing team, whatever, that's going to build that brand for me. So I go to the next round. I don't know, are we Series B, Series C at this point? So let's say that was the Series B. I raise the money. I do the big rebrand. I spend the $5 million that I raised on that, mostly on one Super Bowl ad. But turns out Super Bowl ads don't really move the needle. I burned through all that money. Maybe there's a blight that kills some of the apple orchard. I don't know what. So I know the business can be successful. I've done it. It's worked. But now for whatever reason, cash reserves are running low. I don't actually have the profitability I did before. I know I can make this work, but I just need a little bit of help getting back on my feet. What I could do maybe is a bridge round. There was the investor who gave me the Series B last round. They know I can make this work. They were on board with the branding strategy. It was maybe their brand consultant that I used. But now that I'm in dire straits, well, they could punt on the investment, or maybe they run some numbers and say, gosh, if we just give him another $1 million to replant his apple orchard after that blight, we think we're going to get a higher return. So that would be a bridge, because it's not really a full series. It's not the next round per se. It's just something to help me, again, get back on my feet, help me get going again in the direction I was going. Time passes, something else comes up. I decide I want to expand from apples and watermelon to peaches and corn, but apples and watermelon go great in Southern California. I have no idea if that's true, but peaches and corn, peaches I know in Georgia. So I need to buy a plot of land in Georgia, another big expansion, big opportunity for me. That's my next round of funding, Series D. So as I'm going down this path, Series A, Series B, Series D, yeah, I know how to spell. Series A, Series B, Series C, Series D. There's not some clear distinction. It just means it's the next round. Most businesses that you're hearing about are usually going to be in that Series A, B, or C. You hear a lot about seed. You probably don't hear much about businesses that are in pre-seed unless you're somehow connected to some very early stage stuff. But once you get into that series A through, I think F or G is the latest I've heard of, it's just a business that's raising money for one reason or another. There's no real distinction except for that it's the next round. I would say that most businesses don't need to keep raising after A, B, C. If a business is getting to D, there's usually a reason for it. In the example I gave, there was the blight for the apple orchard. Maybe a business made a big pivot. They have a great team of developers, developed some great software, couldn't quite find that product market fit. They recognize that, oh, there's the explosion of AI. We need to raise another round and pivot to a focus on AI. And maybe they make it past Series C to a Series D. It doesn't really matter what the round is called. It's just that it's the next one, and that fundraising can go on and on and on. But speaking of going on and on and on, I'm not going to do any more of that myself. I'm going to wrap up this seed round. And next time, we're going to talk about the language that you might be using as you're going through this process a bit. Episode 2 is going to be talking about the sorts of investments. What that angel investor might have used was a safe note, whereas once you get to that venture capitalist, it might be a priced round. And we're going to go into a little bit more detail on what all that means. So stick around and thank you.